Hey, I'm Taylor Grant with Bellator Claims Resolution, and I'm here with one of the best top tier insurance litigation attorneys in America with the Denial of the Day podcast. I want to welcome Chip Merlin. Chip, how are you, my friend?
Taylor, it's great to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me over to a chat with you here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for making time out of your busy schedule working on 12, $15 million claims to talk to me in Colorado.
Well, it's always great. I love getting out to Colorado personally. It's a beautiful state.
Yeah.
I grew up, as a kid on the water. My father was in the Coast Guard. Whenever we
Okay.
go back and forth, getting transferred, going through the Rocky Mountains is beautiful. And that office we have in Denver, I love to visit as much as possible. So it's a great state for you to be living.
I heard you snowboard.
Ha! I ski, I try to ski, but I tell everybody I literally take a ski instructor with me everywhere I go. And I said, your whole job is to make sure I don't fall off the cliff.
Right.
And I'm a flatlander, and everybody out there knows that. And I like skiing, but in the afternoon when it gets really flat out there, especially on the catwalks, I have a fear of going 500 feet off the stupid ice, catwalks especially. So, but I'm here, I'm alive, I'm still alive and kicking. The mountains haven't crushed me yet.
I'm glad you're still here. So while we're on that topic, what's your favorite ski resort? Is it in Colorado?
It is, I have a number of them. You know, I'm more of a blue skier, so I
Sure.
keep away from Aspen Mountain. I would go over to Heavenly and stuff like that. But I've had Vail Pass forever, so
Yeah.
you can't get away from those guys. But I like Beaver Creek's great. I mean, it's fantastic to really go out there and go skiing. It's
Yeah.
I should do it more often. It's hard, but I have another level. I also like playing golf down here in Florida, and I especially love sailboat racing, so I keep busy with those.
Yeah. You got a lot going on in Florida, which is good. I know you guys are working on a ton of crazy claims and some things, that we talk about on the Denial of the Day podcast is something that you have seen in the industry. Maybe it's the craziest diminished or underpaid claim or delayed claim or denied claim. So let's just dive into that. Give us maybe one or two examples or stories that you have seen personally that it's so egregious, it's ridiculous, it's almost funny.
It's there's nothing funny about a denied claim. I mean,
Right.
because you have to understand and that's I mean that for the policyholder from their standpoint, it's not funny at all. And we see the
Right.
advertising from Allstate and other companies trying to make fun of claims, and I don't think it's really funny at all for the contractors that are out there trying to fix the place, for the policyholders, for the
Right.
public adjusters. It's nothing but frustration, and so we know that. I think for a while the craziest stuff that was going on is and it's more recent, but 2 years ago, AmGuard, if somebody got a public adjuster, they just stopped responding. And so
What?
we were getting these referrals all over the country. I said, wait a minute. And it wasn't just one public adjuster or two, it's like all of them. All of a sudden we have all these AmGuard cases all over the place. How can you just stop responding? It was like, what is up? And everybody was trying to
Right.
blame Warren Buffett. I don't think Warren Buffett has a clue what's going on, on that. And if he did, he would probably be upset, but he doesn't get in the middle of it. But
Yeah.
why can you just ignore somebody? And of course, there's every reason in the world that most people have heard. It's there's there's no damage. Well, you did an inspection at the wrong premises. You looked at the wrong house. Of course,
The
you
wrong
didn't
date of
change
loss.
anything to. I mean, there's 1,001 things. I've been doing this for over 40 years now, so
Yeah.
it's hard to say
Any
which one would be the craziest, Taylor,
right.
to be
Any
honest with
any
you right
specific
now.
claims that kind of pop out of your mind that you're like, oh yeah, that one was a good one, and this is how we won that.
I always go back. You always think about the big ones, and
Right.
the book that's over my shoulder actually, wrote about, some of those. Certainly the Port of New Orleans case.
Yeah.
Um, there was a public adjuster that got an 8-figure fee out of it. So you know how much of an increase it was and how big of a claim it
Yeah.
ended up being, as a result of that. And we had 26 miles of riverfront essentially that the Port of New Orleans is out on the Mississippi River to
Whoa.
go, look at and readjust and the whole bit. And then the insurance company was just way off. And I won't say who the insurance company was, but one of the craziest things was when we went through and looked at some of the estimators that our client had originally hired before we got involved, and we found there was all kinds of crazy porn and stuff like that that we literally turned over to the insurance company. But because each side was doing keyword searches, and the other side had turned their stuff over, their guys, while they were billing the insurance company, were having parties with hookers and stuff like that. It was very embarrassing. So there's some things that come up as you do through discovery that's embarrassing to both sides, that might, impact. But certainly billing somebody when you're out having a sex party is not a good position to be in with respect to veracity. So when you ask me some of the crazier stories on cases I've been involved in, it's, after doing this at this level, and hear me out. I mean, I even wrote in my book about a little old lady who came in. She had a hole in her muffler, and she was really upset. Somebody stole her car, and the guys went for a joyride. Obviously, went out to the middle of some field. The car comes back completely trashed. They fixed everything up, and C&A paid for most of the stuff, but they wouldn't pay for a hole in her muffler. And cost us, it's $45. Aren't you going to pay for this lady's hole? Well, how do we know it wasn't, typical thing? How do you know it's not pre-existing?
Right.
Because your policyholder who's sitting in front of me, this nice lady who's in her 70s, is telling me that it wasn't there before. That's how I know. Well,
Right.
how do you know she's not lying? Well, do you have any reason to disbelieve her? I mean, and then of course the adjuster goes back. It was rusted out. Of course it's got rust on it, but it happened when they're out joyriding and probably sticking the accelerator down, that all of a sudden it popped up and going through the field that obviously won. Wouldn't you expect? We're talking about $45.
Right.
Merlin, you're not going to sue us over $45. And oh, that was the end of that. I mean, we got off the phone. I had that lawsuit filed in small claims court right away. And I write about it in the book. Eventually got bad faith damages, against them and the whole bit. But whether it's hundreds of millions of dollars to something small, it's just, there's crazy things that happen, in life. I mean, there was somebody we had a case that they were trying to accuse a business owner of arson. And while we're out there, the maintenance guy pulls over where here's the wire and here's the rat that was biting on the wire, literally right there, kind of burned up. You can see him with his teeth like that. I said, how did y'all miss this? I mean, I've seen a lot, and it's
Their investigation.
it's always interesting what comes up with insurance company adjusters. And don't get me wrong, we see some good ones too that are really
Right.
just really trying to help out. And if everybody would do it that way, I wouldn't be, here doing what I do for a living. But unfortunately, it's the opposite. So
Yeah. Well, folks, that's a first on the Denial of the Day podcast. Chip Merlin, thank you so much for bringing that to our attention and bringing that into our knowledge. I mean, that's crazy. And you and I both know that all sorts of weird, egregious, crazy things happen in claims, because that's one of the things that keeps us, you and I, employed, right? And I say all the time on my Denial of the Day videos that I do, that I post on LinkedIn and all the other, social medias, is if insurance companies did their job, public adjusters and Chip Merlin wouldn't have a job.
yeah, that it's getting more difficult, I think, for the field adjusters. Taylor, and I see it a lot with the contractors that do this, for a living, almost on either side. They just put their
Right.
hands up for a while. But how do I say this? A lot of the field adjusters are being dictated to what they're allowed to do and write,
Right.
and they can't do anything more. And there's no way, because all that's being dictated by procedures and processes that are approved by higher claims executives. And it's making a lot of frustrated individuals who are otherwise good field adjusters just almost want to quit. I was at the Georgia Association of Public Insurance Adjusters talking about with a panel of 3 independent adjusters, talking about how difficult it is today because of those things that are going on. A lot of the autonomy they used to have to call things in the balls and strikes that might go on, and
Right.
they just can't do anymore. There's been a big change and shift in the industry with a lot of cost-conscious claims examiners doing things today. So no matter what it's going to be, they're only going to pay, so much. And And I think it's in response to some issues that have gone on in the industry from the policyholder side and from some
Right.
of the contractors that might be gaming the system. That doesn't mean that, as I say, if you start then casting a real wide net, you're going to treat everybody the wrong way. That's not necessarily the right response.
I agree. And so to your point, in the industry that I'm in and the public adjusters that I know, it's a small knit group because there's not a lot of us. And I can tell you what you just said is what all we want is call a ball, call it a strike if it's a strike. That's all we want. Be fair to us, we'll be fair to you. And we just kind of like to your point, we just don't really get that reciprocity. And we're sitting there wondering why. So do you have any thoughts on that or any insider information that you might have in regards to why this is occurring more and more?
Yeah, I think it's really important that everybody in the field understand if you apply the golden rule, and your reputation is what's going to carry yourself. If you get a reputation for always doubling, tripling what an estimate is, not having backup for it, coming
Right.
up with, just really, so, I mean, I'll just give you a mitigation contractor and you don't take any photographs, no videotape, no nothing when you first get out there to back up the need to do all the work. And then you
No.
just throw it on the insurance company. If you get rid of the evidence that you know that they would want to look at it, if you're tearing things out that is wet, why don't you keep all the damaged stuff for them to take a look at it before throwing it out? If you make things appear suspicious, you know,
Right.
it just already gets into the mindset, unfortunately, because there are people that will do that, that you're just one of them. And if you get a reputation for that, the other insurance carriers today, especially with the way they're keeping track of this in computers, they know who
Right.
you are. They'll
Yep.
know who, AI is going to start these are, when it pops up, they're going to have, this is your reputation. This is what they're known for.
Right.
And you're going to have a different game to play. Unfortunately, some insurers then treat everybody that way. And it's sort of like, how do I say, it's the cop that otherwise might be in a neighborhood that used to be good, and all of a sudden it's not so good. And rather than saying that, 5 to 10% of the people aren't good, they start to look at everybody the wrong way
Right.
because they get an attitude that all the public adjusters, all the contractors, everybody's on, all the policyholders are out to get things that they're not entitled to. That can drive an issue too. So the very first thing, to always remember is that professionalism, authenticity, being a person that of a respect, and you show it through your work,
Right.
and you carry yourself that way in the presentation of everything you do, and you listen carefully to what is in the mind of the adjuster. It's sort of like, don't be that jerk guy. Don't be that guy who's going to show up with unsubstantiated claims that make life difficult for the adjuster. They really don't want that. They have enough pressure, especially out in the field, from what's being dictated to them from claims management, that they don't need that extra, that guy that they have to deal with.
Yeah.
And I mean, so when I talk with privately, a lot of the independent adjusters, when I talk with the claims managers, these are the things that, they're looking for in terms of who it is that they frankly have more respect for and trust, and you'll be able to get your claims resolved more that way. So if I had to give one tip, you have to really start to work on yourself, because I gave a speech in front of the Coalition of Disaster Responders, and just 2 weeks ago, and one of the things I talked about is your own personal development with respect to skills in negotiating and it sounds crazy, but emotional intelligence. A lot of what Christopher Voss speaks in Never Split the
Right.
Difference really is a system of strengthening your own interpersonal skill set so that you can talk with others and understand where they're coming from, and they feel that, and what you're talking about is true and authentic. If it's not that way, you're almost destined to fail in anything in life. And so, it's a weird thing to be talking about. For me, that's the psychology of everything,
Right.
but it really starts that way in a human element. And so if I had to give one big, tip out there, is to work on yourself, your authenticity. I'm working that into speeches that I've been giving. I've got this one speech I regularly give, would you hire you?
Oh,
Are
no.
you an authentic individual? Do you really have the credentials to show that you know what you're doing? Or are you looking to better yourself to be among the best, no matter what you do? It's a very high calling to do so. To the CDR, I gave a speech about the hero contractor. And when you think about it, I represent policyholders. They want their contractor to be a hero. They want to be hire the person that's not going to. Their number one fear is to hire somebody who's going to take their money and run away, and be left high and dry. That is their number one fear. They want to hire people that are authentic, get the work done, that are able to work with the insurance company to the extent they can, or find ways to do it. Yeah. They want to know that most of the work is going to be done timely in a great manner, and there's going to be ease of what's going on. So, it kind of works into, the contractor. If you can't get that done, well, who are you going to help you? Who's on your team? Certainly, public adjusters are on your team for that, to help get that, to get that done. But again, you better have that reputation, yourself, and work on yourself up front as to how you're presenting the cost that it's going to be for whatever it might be to get that property, fixed and repaired on behalf of the policyholder.
Yeah. And to your point there, I have met, and this, like the world of large loss adjusters or executive general adjusters is getting smaller every single month, right? I know a guy that just worked, on a school district claim with me. We ended up taking that from $277,000 to $8.6 million, right? And that guy had the authority up to $5 million. We worked really well together. And the engineer that was on that claim, he and I have worked together on a different claim, which was a shopping center, right? And he knew, and he told the adjuster, hey, I've worked with Taylor before. He's legitimate. He's reasonable. Let's see what we can do to work with him. And we took that claim from basically $300,000 to $8.6 million in 7 months, because exactly what you're talking about. My reputation preceded me. And I had worked with this engineer on this large loss claim, and he was able to speak on my behalf to the adjuster. And that goes like that works at so many favors in your direction, that in this case and in future cases, that claim is going to work out better, because you just have a reputation, and people respect that. People enjoy working with other adjusters that are going to be reasonable with them. And just like you were talking about, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, well, this is going to be a $60 million claim. That's not the point here, right? Like, we want to make the insured whole. We want to get them back to pre-loss condition, nothing better, nothing worse, depending on the policy, right? And move forward from there. And so I love that you said that, because I don't think enough people really recognize the ability to have the emotional intelligence not to freak out when the adjuster says something to you that you may not agree with, or he might be, prodding you and your ego a little bit. And instead of freaking out, you're just like, you know what? Let me take that into consideration. And they're just like, what? Like, wait a second, this guy's not going to freak out on me? Like, no, man, that's not my style. But there's a time and a place for that too. Anyhow,
you hit a lot on. I mean, your ego is not your hero, and leaving that behind and not coming in with and I get it. I mean, because it's hard to do.
Yeah, it is.
It's truly hard to do, and to genuinely listen to the adjuster's concern, the insurance company's concerns. For most replacement cost policies, I remind everybody, actually, their policyholders entitled to be in a better place after the loss than what they were beforehand. As a matter of fact, with business interruption and especially extra expense coverage, you could come up way better afterwards. And even if there's a horrible tragedy up front, that the policyholder is actually in a much better position afterwards. And whether it's a home or even a building of a business, you typically don't have to rebuild back exactly the same way, and you shouldn't. You're going to build back in a different way that's more contemporary, or for whatever fits your particular function, however you want to go do it. It's a theoretical amount that what's the reasonable cost to fix something or replace something, and that's a theoretical amount. I mean, it really is. There's a whole range depending upon who's doing the work, how good they are at it, what do they normally charge. And a very high-end contractor might charge one thing because that's just the way it is, and another contractor is going to charge something different. And it depends on who they're going to hire. So the range of what is reasonable, a lot of people forget, is not just one number, even though Xactimate says it's one number. it's a whole range about that people lose. So I think sometimes, track of, but generally what you just talked about and your success came because somebody else said something that this is a person who could be trusted who knew you. And so the reputation is important in the claims business and how people see and carry yourself in the past. And it can
Right.
certainly go up and down every single day. And it's something you just don't want to lose no matter what. And to the extent that something does go wrong, and things never go right every single time. I mean,
True.
I've had, and especially in litigation, sometimes things don't get ruled upon that look one way that's not really the truth. I often say when we get in trials and things like that, the real truth we'll know in the here and after. I mean, all you're going to get is a judge and a jury, and humans are going to make improper judgments sometimes. But it's my job to present the evidence, obviously, on behalf of the policyholder in the best light to them. I think that, your role as a public adjuster is certainly to advocate for the full amount of the coverage in a way that's fair, that maybe the insurance company adjuster hasn't thought about before. Contractors are entitled to make, and I get concerned with the insurance industry through managed care,
Right.
managed repair.
Yeah.
Trying to cut the ability of contractors to fully and properly follow the laws with respect to the way and the specifications that things have to get fixed.
Right.
Because they frankly don't want to pay for the right way. And I think contractors need to know, the proper way to do it, to hire really good people and just use the golden rule themselves. If it was their structure that was getting rebuilt, how would they go about doing it?
Exactly. That's a great way to look at it. And so as an advocate for the policyholder, I always, when I'm getting somebody onboarded with our company, I just let them know, hey, look, I treat this like this was my mom's property, right? And take care of it in that way in our hands. It's like I have to make sure that I'm doing best and right by my client first before anything else can occur, right? And if I'm not doing that, like, would I treat my mom this way? And I love my mom, so the absolutely not, right? Like, I want to make sure that she's being treated properly and everything's getting taken care of, and she's getting back to whole, as good or better than before, based on the policy, like you had said. And ultimately, that's how I operate, because I have never been, I could never go wrong operating that way.
No, you can't. And there's always something new that you're going to learn. You can always better yourself. And
Right.
if you're constantly looking to do that, that's all anybody can ask. Even the Almighty can't ask, any more than what you possibly can do. But it's hard to keep doing that day after day and try to improve. I mean, it's easy to slack off. It's not how do I say, the calling of a public adjuster, the calling what we do for this living, there's so many different things that you have to understand. You have to understand insurance policy language that's constantly changing, but that's where it all starts. And you have to be a very nerdy individual to read insurance contracts day after day, thinking about how they might apply to a gazillion different situations so that it's all going to work for the policyholder. Then you need to know the state laws and state codes, state regulations, and the case law that all interpret those things, as well as provide rights and things like that back and forth. So you have to know the policy, you have to know the state law. Oh, then you have to know construction. You have to know things about personal property. Oh, you have to know about what we just talked about, interpersonal skill sets of negotiation with other individuals
Sure.
to make all this happen. So there's so many, every single loss is a little bit different. You can have, if you're out in Colorado, it's ice damming cases. You can have avalanche cases out there. You can have, snow on top of a roof that falls through. I have wildfires that are different than a single fire somewhere. You have to know all the smoke science and the safety that goes through water type losses, it could almost hurricane wind losses that are going through. And when you talk about some of the winds that are going through, when you talk about a 2-hour, 3-hour event where the winds are greater than 100 miles an hour that you all were having this winter, that's a hurricane in the south, okay? And so those are high windstorm events. So you have all these other losses that all of themselves are a different study, that you have to apply rules and laws and policy language to, just as a public adjuster to be able to advise whether it's a contractor or a policyholder, what's there. Contractors better be able to pick up an insurance policy and be able to tell, holy cow, is this an actual cash value policy on the roof, or not? What am I going to get paid? What's the deductible on these things? You get in some commercial losses, it's that much more complicated, even about the deductibles. And certainly everybody's want to know where the money's going to come from to pay for these projects. If you just did a school, the maintenance guys that are out there aren't necessarily looking for you to tell them that all this reconstruction is going to happen. But, the rebuilding a school where you have to follow certain governmental requirements with respect to who's going to get the bond, it's got to be bid out and all these kind of things. An architect's got to approve it, an engineer's going to approve it. Oh, you're not going to miss any OSHA stuff because they're going to be watching OSHA standards.
Right.
Oh, by the way,
100%.
what about the safety for the kids and the teachers and everybody else is going by? I mean, to rebuild a school is a lot different than rebuilding a commercial property somewhere else, is what I'm saying. So even let's add some more complexity to it. The properties are all different and what they're being used for as well. So insurance claim adjusting by its very nature is highly complex, and it is a business where as an individual is going to decide to get involved in it and you're going to be among the best, you're going to be studying every single day, learning new stuff to keep up on what's going on. It's a great business that way. If you like a challenging business, I'll say that.
Yeah, for sure. It is challenging. And that's one of the things that I love about it is it continues to challenge me to sharpen my mind, sharpen my strategies, and be one step ahead. And it's hard because these insurance companies have way more resources than we do. And like you were talking about AI, and I just had a conversation with one of the guys, another public adjuster in my firm, that we were like, this is interesting. And kind of to your point, Chip, earlier, that we're seeing a lot more just denials or, hey, we're not going to change our opinion. You guys don't have any new evidence. And we're like, okay, show us the evidence that you have. And they're like, we're not going to do that. Well, then how do you know? Like, how do we know that your evidence is different than ours? We went out there and scoped it, and this is damage, and you guys owe for it. Well, we're not going to change our mind. Okay. So it's like, what is happening in the industry and regarding AI and things like that for what we need to be on the lookout?
Well, so, you talk about, artificial intelligence is something that's growing, for all of us. I know that there is software being developed in the property insurance field where images are going to be shown, and they're working on making estimates based upon just images being shown. Certainly, satellite images are being used and frankly, they're being used by contractors as well to shorten up the estimating time, for people to be able to do things.
Wasn't that just on your blog about, I forgot what insurance company it was?
Yesterday I wrote about a church that had their insurance non-renewed based upon a satellite image, and hey, no, you got it wrong. This is it. Here's the letters, and the insurance company just wouldn't accept anything. And I juxtaposed that. There's another insurance company that said they're using the technology, but they won't take the decision until their member has a chance to respond to it, because they know that there'll be, especially with AI today, there's a lot of issues with it. But I'm going to be frank with you, the insurance industry, and because it's looking to reduce costs.
Always.
And if they can not have to pay for the humans, and it's human training, you think you're going through the insurance companies that are really doing this right have to constantly be training their employees how to do it. So that's on their dime and nickel. That costs a lot of money to keep really, really good adjusters up to date on all the various things I talked about. And if they could instead do it through having, and this is crazy, you send an email to them, and the first thing that responds back is AI software responding back to you without a human doing it. You're responding. If we get this response, this is the response back. They're trying to reduce the human cost to cut their own costs that they've got by using artificial intelligence. It's, and I would say in the casualty world, we have personal injury. It's almost as if right now people send letters to insurance companies with demands that are written by, you'll love this, artificial intelligence, after looking at all the medical records, and they got all this kind of stuff written in. This is the car accident, all written by artificial intelligence, and the insurance company responds back with artificial intelligence. It's like bot versus bot, no joke. And so, I do expect it to come over this into the property insurance arena. In my book, I actually started off with a case I took. 98% of what we do is property insurance.
Yeah.
Every now and then we're involved in something else. And I got a call on a health insurance policy that a woman had taken out of Colorado. And she had a very aggressive form of cancer.
Hmm.
And when that claim was put in for the approval to do the medical procedure that needed to be done right away for the surgery, a human never looked at anything.
Wow.
All the medical records, all the modalities and all that went through an algorithm, which is what artificial intelligence is, which kicked
Right.
back, no, this is pre-existing. Three doctors wrote letters. Oh, this is not pre-existing, with a long explanation why. And it still came back, no, it was pre-existing. Eventually, when a human finally looked at it, she wrote, help, help, help. I can't get the computer to change its mind. By this time, the doctors had already done the surgery. We had filed a lawsuit up there on it. And I talked about it sort of like being, 2001: A Space Odyssey, where
Right.
the astronaut is outside of the spaceship and he's trying to get back in, and the computer goes, sorry, Dave, not letting you in.
You're an alien.
And it's kind of a crazy situation, but I believe that the trend will be a greater use of AI, regardless of what I say, right or wrong. I think some regulators are going to have to take a look at that so it's used appropriately.
Right.
I expect that it'll probably be used even on our side. As I say, I know some roofing contractors are using AI already to do their estimates. And there's a company out there in my research that showed they're approaching contractors right and left. So I'll imagine they'll send in their AI made estimates, to which the insurance companies will respond back with their AI stuff back to the roofer. So that's kind of what we're getting to in life. It's going to be, it's a whole new world that we're going to learn about.
Yeah, our plan to phase ourselves out completely is almost in place. Well, it's so interesting because I totally agree with that. And every once in a while, we'll run stuff through there. I actually use GPT more on the personal side, like, hey, what's going on this weekend that I can take my kids to, or stuff like that. And it's amazing. And the fact where it's at now, just from a year ago, I'm just like, holy crap. But I guess my question to you, Chip, is we feel like machine learning and AI is playing a role in some of these claim determinations because it just seems weird. It's not like it used to be even 3 or 4 months ago where we felt like somebody actually looked at it. So can we request, if a machine learning or an AI or machine learning has made any part of this claim determination, can we request how it was made? Like, can we get that information in the background?
Well, I think you should be able to. So, I mean, the deposition that I was involved in today on a case where it's in excess of the amount. The last remaining part of this case is definitely in excess of what we think is $10 million, and it can get quite a bit higher than that too.
Wow.
And I was asking the insurance company adjuster, would you agree that the obligation of good faith and fair dealing requires you, as the adjuster and the insurance company, to always be honest at all times with your policyholder? And obviously the answer is yes, it does. And I remind people, when you're being honest, that means really transparent. Honest is not, oh yeah, I was doing this, I was doing that, and you just happen to leave out, because you can be dishonest by omission, that you were doing something else that you won't tell somebody. So I think it's very dishonest when an insurance company will not provide you the full reasons and the support that they have for those reasons with respect to the denial of a claim. So when they refuse to provide you that report, that should be triggering a regulatory response, because it's absolutely wrong. Insurance companies that do that should be penalized, for doing so. Adjusters that are claims executives that are allowing that to happen in their business, they should be penalized and possibly lose their license. In other words, if you're going to explain to somebody why they don't get paid, it should be an honest explanation with everything supporting it why. Otherwise, it's dishonest.
Right.
And if you apply the golden rule, who would want to have that? I mean,
nobody.
They don't have to agree with everything just because you're asking. I get it. The world would be crazy, but you have to be able to support your position. If you're the insurance company, the same way they're going to require you, what's the support for yours? I don't quite get it. What you're telling me is this. That's great. Let me see it. And you'll turn it over.
Right.
or you should, so it's their reputation at stake too. And I would say insurance involves the public trust to the extent the insurance industry tailors getting to the point where claims executives are backing up field adjuster and say, we're not going to turn that report over to you. And then they make up some excuse,
Yeah.
it's work product or whatever it is. That's really dishonesty is the way I take a look at it.
Yeah. Well, no, I appreciate you chiming in on that because I, just like you, foresee that becoming more prevalent in our industry and also becoming more of an issue. And to what you had said before, they're always looking to cut costs. And I get that. That's what businesses do. But at what expense? At the expense of someone dying from cancer because an AI model couldn't detect that it was not a pre-existing condition, right? And maybe 10 years from now, you and I are going to talk and it's going to be like, wow, they actually fixed all that and it's super fair. I'm not sure if that's actually going to be the conversation you and I have, but it's going to be better than it is today. But like at what cost? And that's what I always look at is you can't put your profit over the people that you are here to serve, because when that happens you run into what we're running to, like how I feel what's happening in our industry, where these insurance companies are really flexing more and denying more and or delaying or diminishing those claims, that it's unfair for the policyholder, and they're just sitting there like, what is going on? Like, how come this isn't working? And part of it is like, for us, our frustration, and you and I talked about this when we saw each other last month at our Mapia, was we call a certain insurance company and we'll be on, like yesterday I literally had a conversation with the guy in my office and he said, I was on the phone for 25 minutes, they picked up, they hung up, didn't talk to anybody, they basically picked up the line and hung up, so he'd have to start over. And it's just like, this is so frustrating. What can we do as an industry on the public adjuster side and the referral partners, contractors? What can we do to better serve our clients in an environment that is, I think, just starting at this point and probably going to become more tumultuous?
Well, that's a big question. I wish I had the right answer for everything you asked because it's from circumstance to circumstance. But you know, I think that for contractors, especially, I think that the point in time to decide if you're going to, and this goes for the insurance company as well, but you don't have to take every single case that's going to come. You definitely just don't. Is it profitable or not to take it? But once you do decide you're going to do something, you got to do your job right. And so whatever you promise your customers certainly should be done. From the insurance company's viewpoint, the time to decide whether or not they're going to be on the risk or not is at the underwriting stage. And they have an obligation to figure out who they want to underwrite and figure out how much profit they want to have and figure out what their premium is that they're going to charge and the law of large numbers to take on that particular risk. And then they can work with their policyholder if they want through risk management to try to prevent things from happening and stuff. But once the loss happens, the obligation for the insurance company is to get the money out of its treasury into the hands of its policyholder to fully pay as soon as possible. Anything that you can do as a contractor or a public adjuster to help show the insurance company that you've mitigated the loss to keep it as little as possible, that you've thought about things, not to maximize the payment and the work that needs to be done, but are there alternative methods that we can do something that leave the property just as good and maybe even a better condition and save the insurance company money?
Right.
When you can show that you've done things that actually save the insurance company money and that you're being a good steward, I don't mean hurting yourself from it, but actually showing that there's other methods that we could have done, which we didn't, that could have cost you more money. I think it's across to the insurance company that you're really thinking through this, the right way. Now, again, it's all theoretical because people don't have to go back and rebuild the same way. But I'll give you an example. Let me give you an example of a case that I had.
Sure.
We had a condominium that had looked to us suffered a collapse loss because the structural integrity of one side of a building was gone because everything had rusted away. It was hidden for a number of years, all of a sudden came to light, and the claim was made for approximately $2.3 million, which the insurance company offered to pay a few $100,000. Not even close. We go out there, I'm out there, and I go, I'm not certain if y'all found everything because there wasn't enough looking behind the walls, how extensive is this? So when the insurance company said they're not going to pay the 2.3, we had the engineers go do more work. And next thing you know, the claim's up to 5.4. And then the insurance company goes, hey, would you take the 2.3? You know, it's $1 short and a day late, guys. I now have more
Right.
information. It's really this big. You know, then they came back and said, well, we think that's, you know, not going to cut it, da 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 da. And I go, I'm not even certain if we can do it for that amount. Let's do a test. And so I got our client financing and they did a test amount. After you extrapolate all that out, it was going to cost in excess of $12 million. We then said, well, you can save a couple million if you move the people out and put them in motel spaces. And the insurance company was, well, we're not going to pay for that because we don't pay for additional living expenses for a condo. To which I said, it's a construction mitigation expense. I am saving you money. To
Yeah.
which they disagreed. Eventually, they had arbitration clause, went to arbitration. We won the full amount that we were asking for. You
Yeah.
know, and they kept asking for more, but their argument, then they appealed it. And the judges said, you know, it's you're done, but your argument is that you don't owe for this coverage. Merlin saved you $2 million by the way he's doing it. What
Right.
are you arguing about? And I think some adjusters, if you can get to it early and they can see that you're working with them on the various things, you're answering what is of their concern. And typically, is it a legitimate claim? Are the costs legitimate? Why
Right.
is the method of repair the best for the policyholder? You know, and
Right.
those types of issues, and you address the adjuster's concern again. If you're asking me for the biggest tip that can be done, who's on the other side and what are their concerns? Now,
Right.
if all they're concerned about is they don't want to pay and they're going to deny, and that's why I wrote that book that you're looking at right now, Pay Up.
Yeah.
But the subtitle to it is Avoiding a Disaster with Your Own Insurance Company. I mean,
Right.
we're very busy. We're a national law firm. We're all over the place. We have over 50 attorneys, and this is what we do. We have plenty of good business. I'm trying to teach people, and I hope even this podcast you've got helps teach others that,
Yeah.
hey, if you can do this and work through it, there doesn't need to be litigation every time. There doesn't need to be appraisals. There doesn't need to be arbitration. And there's certain techniques that I think, Taylor, in your description of what you did on that school district is, again, your reputation and how you present stuff means everything today.
Exactly. That's exactly it. So you keep referencing, and I want to bring it up now, the book to your left, Pay Up, Preventing a Disaster, right? Tell me, like, what was the motivation behind that book? And tell me more about it.
For a long time, people have been asking me to write something, and I started writing stuff. One time, I even wrote, and it just was jambalaya. And finally, my chief operating officer came back, and you can see Forbes, the co-publisher, and they said, Chip, they will help, get other ghostwriters to help out so much if you work with them on the stories. Now, I write a blog every single day, and if it says Chip
Right.
Merlin on it, that's Chip Merlin writing it. It's not somebody else.
Right.
It's always me. And so it's not as if I don't write. I write a lot, and I write almost every single day on insurance recovery issues. But books a little bit different because I also wanted to show what it's like to everybody in the real claims world, and also provide some stories in terms of a philosophy of what's going on in the claims world in various scenarios. And so I did talk about the small claim. I talked about some larger claims in there. I talked about the experiences and the emotional toll that people go through,
Right.
especially after large natural disasters. It's people don't want to talk about how traumatized many policyholders are. I mean, so if you're a contractor out there and you're seeing somebody's house just burned down, or they've just gone through a hurricane, the person you're dealing with has gone through a very traumatic emotional time. And sometimes the insurance companies, and how do I say this the right way? It's even they have fatigue trying to deal with people like that. But it's something that we in the industry have to know about and approach. I would suggest a good bedside manner by contractors, by public adjusters, by insurance company adjusters is needed. And people don't want to be reliving everything. Every week you have to go through this. So when we need this, we need this, we need this, versus trying to get your job over and done with, making it as easy as possible for people, is really good for people's mental health as well.
Well,
Sometimes not talked about. So these are things that I wanted to write about in the book, and with the help of Forbes, eventually you got written up, and Forbes is great. I mean, so they had me up on Madison Square, with the big book launch and the whole bit, and
cool.
number of articles that were published in Forbes magazine, with it. But it's something I'm proud of. I wrote another book called Mavericks and Merlins. That's a little bit more about my personal philosophies of business and management, and my love of sailing. That I bought a very large racing yacht called Merlin, of all things, that I first learned about when I was 19 years old. And I said, man, if I ever had the money to buy that boat, I will do so. And it came up for sale in 2017, and I bought it. And
Cool.
so, I've been racing on that with some other smaller boats, obviously, but it's been, very much a love of mine. I grew up racing sailboats. As I said, my father's in the Coast Guard, so we grew up on the water somewhere. And I still get out there. The old man's still out there racing on these boats.
That's amazing. So with that, you've had quite the success in your life and in your business. And so can you share with me one of the biggest successes that you've had, if it's personal or professional, and what you had learned from that?
It's funny. One of the more recent ones, I was appointed as the insurance coverage counsel for the class of victims of the Champlain Towers, the
Mhm.
condominium that fell down in Sunrise. And, it's tragic to have that many people die. It's tragic having to go through everything, but the
Right.
job as a lawyer, and especially an insurance coverage lawyer, is then to assist the other litigators. And, I talk about the power of teams, often a lot. If you're not just by yourself, but is there a team that you're a part of that makes you more than yourself, and how strong teams can be? When you talk about success, one of the things I think in our law firm, we've grown so much. We have over 120 employees, in the
Yeah.
firm now. And at times I go, geez, what a pain in the neck it can be, because dealing with people, we are tricky people. People are just difficult to deal with. At the same time, if
Right.
you can make it work right, I'm a much better attorney because I'm with a team of people doing things. And so when I got to work on the Champlain Towers, and I'm working with some of the best litigators in the state of Florida, and actually the country, we had some people that do nothing but collapse cases. And then I'm able to work with people that are doing insurance coverage matters, and even great attorneys on the other side who are involved in the case, because the stakes are so high.
Yeah.
When you really dedicate yourself with some really great people, and you have a judge who's one of the best judges, and so you get all these great people. We got back $1.1 billion. And I know a lot of people say litigation takes forever. 1.1 billion, all paid for by insurance, in 11 months. I mean,
Whoa,
I've
that's
got,
crazy.
right. I mean, it sort of says, when you have these appraisals of a residential claim, they take more than a year to get done. I'm like, what are we doing? We got back $1.1 billion of all these people, entities, and everything else that we've done for 1 billion. Can we apply some of those lessons? And so when you talk about some of my greatest successes, it wasn't just me. Obviously, it wasn't even close to me. It was a lot of us that were very dedicated to what we were doing at the very top of our game. I mean, I'm 65 years old now. I still love doing what I do. I'm having a blast doing what I'm doing, but I'm also doing it with others within the firm that are also trying to personally and professionally grow. And that's
Right.
been very satisfying, and it's growing for me as well too. I think about things in a much deeper and more broad fashion than what I used to, before. And I, just knock on wood, I can keep doing it this way, as God will keep allowing my brain to work. There is a certain time, I mean, without a doubt, I know my brain is not as good as it used to be 15 years ago. I just be honest, okay? And as I get
Nope.
older, I always feel like when's I'm going to be popped? We're going to put me in the left-hand corner of a room somewhere. I'm trying to prevent that from happening, but I make up for it experience. I try to make up for it by keeping my energy up. I make every single day I
Yep.
work at this stuff. I think for those of us that are people of passion and energy, and we've found something that we really love to do, it's a blessing to be able to come and do it. It's nice that you get paid well, so that I can go race my boats and be with now my grandchildren and stuff like that. But
Amazing.
it's novel, it's different, it keeps interesting, and so that's a long-winded answer
I love it.
to tell you that I feel very fortunate to be living the life that I get to live right now.
That's great. So we've talked quite a bit about business, and one of the things that I always ask my guests on my show is, who is Chip Merlin behind the work? Like, if you just took that out, who are you personally?
uh, the same
Gotta love
kid that
that
I
laugh.
was, the same kid that I was when I was 4 years old, but just now 65 years old, I guess. And yeah, I was, what's the old saying? Men need to change, but they never do. Women don't need to change, but they always do. And I love to have fun what I do. We will turn down. I'll tell people we don't have to take certain cases if it's not going to be fun to go do. I mean, and that
Right.
means either from an intellectual standpoint, a challenge. I mean, we're litigators. That's what we do. I do like competing. And the reason why I like sailboat racing is because I get to compete. I was in a regatta this week down in Key Largo. There was 3 former national champions in the Flying Scot fleet, and I won the last race. I beat those guys. I finished 4th. The 3 of them ended up beating me. I beat a lot of other people, but say it's winning and beating and competing. I enjoy that. I think the reason why I decided to become a litigator in a litigation firm is the competition that I have with my opposing side and trying to win a case for my client. I think inherently, if you don't have that as a litigator and you don't enjoy, that process, it's difficult to do. So I feel fortunate that I found an area of law that I really enjoy doing, and trying, and just like any other athletic endeavor, except now it has to do with a legal endeavor with a team. I
Right.
mean, I'm having to put everything together. So we make a trial team and we send people, okay, who's going to go to the Spence Trial School? Who are the up and
Right.
coming attorneys to do that? From a business standpoint, who's going to head up the business development? Who's doing what? What are we doing for everybody? So those are all, I think, competitive challenges, as well to try to make a law firm that's the best policyholder recovery law firm in the country. And I, it's again, I feel fortunate. So if you ask me who that person is, it's that young kid still out there having fun doing what he did and playing in the sandbox with others to do it. When I tell you sincerely that it is, if it's not fun, I'm not going to do it. It might be hard work, but it's fun, hard work to go do it. We're going to go do it, and off we go. And we all have different talents. And if you can put everybody together for those talents, I don't have all the talents in the world, and God knows I lack patience. So, but I have a smile on my face talking to you on 4:30 or almost 5 o'clock. I guess we're here right now
Right.
on a Thursday afternoon after being up all hours last night and early this morning getting ready for a major deposition. I
Yeah.
do it because I love it. That's the person that's really behind. If you had to suck it all out, that to me this is play, and for me, play as a kid was always getting out there and competing in sports. Except now I'm doing it, in law.
Yeah. That's incredible. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate you taking the time, because that's a big deal for you to share your knowledge. And I know that's something that's really important to you. You do a lot of these presentations and you're a speaker at a lot of events. I know that. To finish up, what would you tell the audience? The people that listen to us are insureds, general contractors, roofers, some property managers, things like that. If you could just give them one piece of advice regarding a claim. I know that's a big ask because there's so many different things, but kind of from like a 10,000-foot overview, what would you tell them?
Go buy that book right there, pay up, get it on Kindle, and follow the instructions. You're crazy not to. I
Right.
tell you exactly what to do and what your considerations are for that. But let's
Yeah.
go through them, because everybody's got a different thing. For a policyholder,
Right.
do you really know what you're doing and you have the time to take care of the claim? Is it a big enough claim? It's not small that it's going to take up your time. Let's face it, most policyholders leave a lot of money on the table because they don't know what all their rights are. And
Right.
they don't know what to do. They don't want to hassle with everything. So they just give up and take whatever the insurance company's got. You're crazy not to hire a public adjuster. In the book, I talk about the type of public adjuster that you ought to be hiring. So that'll help them out. I even talk about the type of contractor you ought to be hiring to fix your place as well,
Yeah.
because not all contractors are the same in this day and age. The truth of the matter is you can almost fake anything by advertising.
Right.
And so for the policyholder, I tell them what to do. How do you pick out the right public adjuster? How to pick out the right contractor? I even tell them if you have to go see an attorney, how do you pick out the right attorney? So let's talk about that. For you, the public adjuster, be the person who I'm telling the policyholder to hire.
Right.
Would you hire you? Would you, if you had a loss, would you honestly hire you versus somebody else? And that's a real high calling. If you will dedicate yourself to being that person that you would hire the best, it is a great way to be to answer that question. It's going to raise your bar. That's the great tip for all my public adjusters. Contractors is the same thing as well too. What makes you the best to be able to go do this? Are you really going to be able to fulfill what the obligation is to be the hero, to take this person who's just gone through a disaster and fully restore their life, whether it's a business or their home, and get it back that way? What do you need to do to have both the credentials, the experience, and you know what to do and do it with integrity, that everybody would expect? I write it that way for attorneys. I see people, and you really have to watch today. There are, unfortunately, in all of our, whether you're a contractor, public adjuster, or you're an attorney, there's a lot of people that you hit it on the head, Taylor, when you said it earlier. Those people that are doing it for the money, they are never going to be the best. The people that are the best are the ones that are doing it because inherently in themselves, they want to be it that way. The business will come in if you do it. For the policyholder and everybody else that's out there, it's easier today than ever before to fake being somebody that is really the best to hire. Through internet advertising, you can almost say anything. Social media can con people into things. Artificial intelligence more than anything else. I mean, the con artists and the scammers, to get rich quick. Oh, let us help you get something more than you desire. All the things that intrigue people to, oh, let's go get people, hire this person for a greedy purpose.
Right.
You got to really watch out for them, because you know what? There is no quick fix in life in anything. And you better be prepared in today's day and age, if you're a great consumer, to find those people that are truly authentic, wanting to be the best they can.
Yeah, love that, brother. Hey, thank you so much for being on here. Your wisdom is very much appreciated. You have so much knowledge. It's crazy. I could sit here and talk to you for hours, probably days, probably weeks, and we still wouldn't get to the end of your knowledge. So thank you so much for being on our show. If someone wants to reach out and needs to hire a insurance litigation property attorney, how do they reach you?
There's only one Chip Merlin. There used to be two, but the other guy was a contractor and he died about 15 years ago. So if you go to the blog, if you just put in Google Chip Merlin attorney, you'll be able to track me down. I mean, there is only one Chip Merlin. There is only one Merlin Law Group. There are plenty of phone numbers. Then you can get me if you just put that into Google. My telephone number, here it is. I'll give people my cell number. I'm not afraid. 813-695-8733. But
there you go, folks.
You can reach me. I am definitely not off the grid. I'm easy to find for our law firm. And for people, hear me out. We make this crystal clear, and I know for you too. If you're a public adjuster, you have a question, you can text me, email. Text are the best, because if you wait, pick up the phone. I'm very accessible. People don't abuse this thing. Policyholders don't either abuse it. Rarely do I get a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning or something like that. But truly, if they also want to just get general education, if you go Chip Merlin blog, there's only one blog that's going to have every single day. We've been writing it for long. It's going to be 20 years. I mean, I think it's from 2006. We've been writing almost every single day. There's no matter what it is. So if you want to have a question about, if you're in Colorado, what's the rule of matching in Colorado? And just put in a search. You're probably going to get 6 different blogs about that particular topic. So it's a great resource for policyholders, contractors, and public adjusters. We always tell people to go to our blog. I write 85% of it. So it's there, and I share my knowledge for free just to help out everybody.
And I can tell you, I have used your blog, and I have done exactly what you just said. I go to the search bar, type in my search, see that, like, oh, okay, this is how I can apply it as a public adjuster. So I appreciate it. You guys put a ton of value into the marketplace to help insureds contractors, public adjusters, and we absolutely appreciate it. Thank you so much, Chip, for being on the Denial of the Day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Taylor's great. Thank you so very much.